The Warhammer 2 units are coming to Warhammer 3 with Immortal Empires, but how do these older units stack up against the new, fresh Warhammer 3 faces? Well, that's what we're going to find out today by smashing the units into each other in a who's the best style fashion if you've seen these videos before, but it's going to be a little bit different because I'm not going to go through every single matchup. I've already done that in these videos, so in a bid to not make this video 8 hours long, I'm not going to go through every single unit. We're just going to take the best from Warhammer 2, the best from Warhammer 3, and see what the hell happens. The units we're going to be using are going to be, for Warhammer 2, the Chosen with great weapons for the Chaos, the Swordmasters of Hoeth, or Ho-Masters as we like to call them around here, for the High Elves, the Blade Singers for the Wood Elves, and the Blackhawks for the Greenskins. These were the 4 best performing anti-infantry units in Warhammer 2. For Warhammer 3, it's the Exalted Bloodletters for Khorne, the Exalted Demonets for Slaanesh, the Exalted Plague Bearers for Nurgle, and the Sargard for Kislev. I could have put the Pink Horrors in here as well, but as they're more ranged focused, I thought we'll just try and keep it more melee anti-infantry focused. So that's what we're going to do. Let's get into it. So we're kicking things off with my 2 favorite factions from Warhammer 2 and 3, the Greenskins and Kislev. The Sargard with great weapons coming up against the Blackhawks. And these 2 units pretty similar overall. They're both just anti-infantry armor-piercing damage dealers. No fancy abilities or anything like that. So this is just really a test of raw damage output power. Looks like the Kislevites are falling behind a little bit. The Blackhawks got a little bit more health at the moment. And I am going to give the Blackhawks 1 war to use, because that's obviously just part of their game that they would normally get. Only once, though. We could potentially use it twice, but we'll just give them the once, so it's not too unfair. They get to use their special faction ability in the same way that Kislev does, because they have their Buy Our Blood ability that stops them routing for 30 seconds, and that could help them win in this kind of competition. But we see routing from the Kislevites now, getting beaten down by the Blackhawks. The Blackhawks still got a fair bit of health left, so this one is probably decided. After the 30 seconds of Buy Our Blood goes away anyway, let's just skip to that. And mass routage for the Sargard. So Warhammer 2 units looking strong so far. The Blackhawks representing the old boys pretty well. Now let's see how the Blackhawks fare against some demons. Starting with the Exalted Plague Bearers. We're going to allow them to use their missile attack, as it is part of their thing. But we will charge them when the Blackhawks get close. And the Plague Bearers, of course, don't have a lot of armor on, but they are incredibly tanky. They have a lot of health. They got that melee defense. So they might be able to outlast the Blackhawks here, and especially as they won't rout and run away as the Blackhawks will, so that's always a big advantage. But you can see the Blackhawks coming into this fight pretty much half dead from all those missiles that hit them before they arrived. So that's a pretty rough start, although this one somehow hasn't taken any damage from missiles, really. Don't know what this one was doing. This one has, though. We'll see if that makes a difference, though. If there isn't too much missile damage, can the Blackhawks beat Plague Bearers? And as this battle rages on, we see that the Plague Bearers, it seems, can outlast the Blackhawks. Thus, they've run out of juice and they've routed. If they had a little bit longer, they might have been able to beat some of these. But the Blackhawks that didn't get blasted by missiles seem to actually look like they're going to win. So they might get 1 win here. This one looking pretty bleak, but too much staying power from the Plague Bearers for the Blackhawks to handle. They might be able to win this one here. They are wavering. It's not looking great, but you never know. So those missiles really did help the Plague Bearers out. Without those missiles getting off first, then the Blackhawks, in theory, should be able to beat Plague Bearers, as we're about to see in the center here. This one's broken as well. So it's just this last one that is looking good for the Blackhawks. They seem to have the numbers. Maybe this other one might go... Well, the Blackhawks might get 2 here. You never know. There is the poison effect, as you can see here. The Blackhawks being affected by the Plague Bearers' poison. That's really hurting their damage output, which is probably attributed to the Plague Bearers being able to win here, or maybe not. The Blackhawks going to take one here. This one, I think, was affected by missiles and beaten down by missiles, and it's still able to win. And this one that actually didn't take the missile damage is looking like it's going to lose. What the hell is happening? Oh, some cheating going on here from the Plague Bearers. Dirty, dirty tactics. So that's actually going to cost the Blackhawks to lose, but it looks like they were going to win that. So I did run this again because I thought this could well be a 3-2, which makes it too close. I ran it again, pretty much the same result. So unfortunately for Blackhawks, they're not able to beat Plague Bearers, but incredibly close in some situations. What about those Demonets then? Those Slaaneshi sex workers? Although I think everyone's a sex worker for Slaanesh. Demonets, of course, lacking armor compared to the Blackhawks, but that is kind of part of their thing. They do have the physical resistance, as all demons do. And no magical attacks for the Blackhawks, which would help them out against all these demons. And the Demonet starting to pull ahead here, beating down these Blackhawks slowly but surely. The War's just gone off though, so maybe that can turn things around a little bit. And the Demonet's not actually getting to use their strength, which is the devastating flanker ability, of course. So Gonna miss out there, but they're super strong. They probably don't even need it, and it's looking like they're beating down these Blackhawks pretty handily. They are a little bit more expensive. The Demonets cost 1,200, 1,200, and the Blackhawks 1,150, so only 50 less. So it should be a fairly close competition. And Blackhawks have done a fair bit of damage, but is it enough for the price difference of the two units? Because Blackhawks are about to lose here. There was wavering all over the shop. One's routed in the distance. But the Demonets still have a fair bit of health, considering the price of these two units being so very close. The Demonets still got about 25% to a third of their health left. And the final test for the Blackhawks was, of course, the Exalted Bloodletters, the best anti-infantry unit in Warhammer 3. And as the Blackhawks couldn't beat the Demonets, it's fairly predictable what's going to happen in this one. You can see the Blackhawks just taking a ton of damage early on, and that is going to lead them to be massively defeated by the best unit in Warhammer 3, unsurprisingly. But hold up, again, we have that same issue as we had with the Demonets, that the cost here is pretty much no different between these two units. 1,150 for the Blackhawks, 1,200 for the Exalted Bloodletters. By those standards, this fight should be much closer, but you can see these Bloodletters, they've got like a third to half their health left, so essentially vastly outperforming the Blackhawks. For only 50 gold. What a bargain, huh? How about the old Blade Singers then? For the Wood Elves, these scantily clad ladies taking on the Sargard here, the only human unit, or non-demon unit at least, from the Warhammer 3 bunch. And we see the charge, initial damage, looking like it's a winner for the Blade Singers. They've done a bit more damage on their charge, but can they outlast the Sargard and their By Our Blood ability? That'll keep them in the fight a good bit longer. And there's about 100 price difference between these two units, the Blade Singers being more expensive. And it's looking like they're going to stomp some of these Sargard down the end. And this one especially getting severely stomped. The health difference here quite substantial between these two units. The Blade Singers putting up a good show early on against the non-demon unit anyway. And able to beat them pretty handily, so Blade Singers looking good so far. Now for the moment you've all been waiting for, some girl-on-girl action. Demonets versus the Blade Singers. Both kind of similar units, light on the armor, good on the armor-piercing damage, anti-infantry, both high in the speed. But what's interesting here is that they both have a physical resistance of 20%, but they both have magical attacks, so they're cancelling out each other's physical resistance. And as we can see here, these Blade Singers are getting absolutely dumped on quite badly by these Demonets. And what's the kicker here? Well, these two units cost the same, 1,200 for both, yet the Demonets still have about half of their health left, some of them, or near enough. So the Blade Singers vastly underperforming for their cost compared to the units they're fighting. The same thing we saw with the Blackhawks. They also lost to the Plague Bearers with their missiles doing a lot, and as you can imagine, the Bloodletters absolutely destroyed them as well. So overall, this lady summing up the Blade Singers' performance, not so good. And it's the same thing here with the Exalted Bloodletters. Again, they cost 1,200, Blade Singers cost 1,200, but the Blade Singers got absolutely murdered. So it's kind of looking like the Warhammer 2 units simply aren't up to the task of dealing with demons, and the Blade Singers were the third strongest infantry in Warhammer 2, the Blackhawks being the fourth strongest. So it seems a little bit off. How about the second best unit in Warhammer 2 then? The Homasters of Swordeth, the Swordmasters of Hoeth, whatever you want to call them. Let's see how they do against the demons. They obviously beat the Sargard, who cost 1,100 by the way, which is the same cost of the old Plague Bearers here. Swordmasters costing 1,250 as they did in Warhammer 2, so a little bit more than most. We'll see how they do against the Plague Bearers here. Taking some missiles, they've lost a lot of health from those missiles. Let's see how they do now they're into the melee. Done some good damage on the charge, so starting to bring it back just a little bit. The Plague Bearers' damage output generally quite slow. They don't have armor-piercing damage, so these heavily armored units like Homasters will be able to stand up to them a little bit more. We'll see if they can outlast them, though. That is going to be the test, and how Nurgle usually beats you simply by staying alive longer than you can. And what do you know, as the battle rages on, the Swordmasters start to close that health gap and really start to make it pretty close, wavering from the Plague Bearers here. Swordmasters, pretty good condition. Look at these ones, nearly half health. These next ones, nearly half health as well. So strong performance from the Homasters, absolutely obliterating the Plague Bearers. As they should, because they're more expensive, but maybe the Homasters are the ones to save the day here. Let's try them out against some hoes, the things that they do master. Can I get away with that? Yeah, probably be alright. Let's see if the Slanesh sex workers can beat these high elf pimps. Both coming in with strong charges. The Swordmasters do cost about 50 more, so a little bit more expensive than the Demonets, but from the charge and the little fight they've had, it looks like the Demonets are maybe getting ahead, or maybe they're falling behind. Maybe they're falling behind now, actually. It's very close. I can't tell what the hell is happening, but it's very close, as it should be with two units that cost the same, right? That's how things should generally be. Of course, there's occasional matchups where a certain unit might have a certain ability that is just the absolute kryptonite to the other unit, and that can happen, but in this case, it just seems to happen too often for that to be the case, and it looks like the Demonets are going to get stomped by the Swordmasters of Hoeth. So these High Elf boys proving that they still are a pretty hefty force to be reckoned with. But we have to ask the question, why did they perform so much better than the Blade Singers, who only cost 50 less than the Swordmasters? Well, we'll get to that in a second. First, let's see how they do against the best of the best, the Exalted Bloodletters. And again, I referenced the price point, $1250 for the Swordmasters, $1200 for the Bloodletters, so Swordmasters are more expensive technically, but only by a little bit. Looks like a pretty even fight so far. Bloodletters may be slightly ahead, faring better than the Blade Singers or Blackhawks so far anyway. But as the battle wears on a bit, we see that the Homasters are actually starting to win some of these fights against the Exalted Bloodletters, the best unit of Warhammer 3. And this is only the second best unit of Warhammer 2, so what the hell is going on here? Well, it ain't over till it's over. The Bloodletters not going down that easy, some wavering from them in the center, wavering on the far end, but they're able to rout the Homasters there, wavering more from the Homasters, more breakage, Homasters crumbling now, absolutely failing, except for this one in the middle that seems to be holding on and has actually won its fight. A little cheer from them. They're able to win one fight against the Exalted Bloodletters, but overall a 4-1 loss, winning for the Bloodletters. So, very interesting, but it's about to get way more interesting as we move on to test the biggest, baddest boys of Warhammer 2, the Chosen with great weapons. Now complete with a little sexy makeover, they're ready for some murdering. And let's get straight to the point here. The best unit of Warhammer 2, the Chosen with great weapons, versus the best unit of Warhammer 3, the Exalted Bloodletters. Let's see who's the freaking best. Both coming out strong with strong charges, done a lot of damage to each other. Looks like the Chosen have done a little more damage to the Bloodletters though than the other way around. Very even though, not much difference in it at all. And it stays that way throughout the entire fight until some routing starts to inevitably happen. But who's going to start to waver first? Both holding strong, very close in a lot of these fights though. Chosen looking better in some, Bloodletters looking better in others. Anybody's guess who's going to win. Some wavering from the Bloodletters, some wavering from the Chosen, some Chosen breaking there. We see Bloodletters banishing those, some more Chosen breaking here, so that's 2 wins for the Bloodletters. Are the Chosen going to win this one here? It's looking close. Can they do it? They've done it. They've won one there. Down the end, they've won another one right at the end here, so they've won 2, but they've lost the third one. So, Bloodletters win this one 3-2. Too close to call, so we got to run it again. Let's see if it was a fluke for the Bloodletters or whether they can do it again. So Chosen coming off a 3-2 loss there to the Bloodletters. Let's see if they can redeem themselves in this one. Again, big charges, lots of damage done by both sides. Fairly even in the amounts of damage done early on. It's just going to be the long game that really decides this one. And with a bit of fast forwarding, it doesn't take long for things to start to crumble and disintegrate and waver. We see wavering from the Bloodletters. No Chosen have wavered yet. So Chosen may be looking good in this one. They've got some advantages in some of these fights. But, of course, those Bloodletters not routing and running away does give them that slightly better holding advantage to stay alive and stick around. Bloodletters broken down there, so that's 1 win for the old Chosen. Mark one up. They've got 2 wins here. That's 2 wins for the Chosen. They just need 1 more to turn this around. Potentially, it's looking close. Come on, you can win one of these, boys. You can do it. Very close at the end. Very close in the middle. They've done it at the end. That's 3 wins for the Chosen. Can they make it a 4-1? Or maybe even a clean sweep, 5-0? Both of these remaining fights could go either way. Maybe looking a bit more sure in the center. Chosen got a bit more health, although model count probably fairly even. Slicing down those Bloodletters. Although Chosen falling in equal amounts. The battle down the end still going on as well. Can they get this done? It's looking close. Chosen have won this anyway, so we will redo this one more time. Oh, Bloodletters have won one down the end, so it's at least a 3-1. Can the Bloodletters make it a 3-2 to make this a perfectly even competition? Whew. As I say, we'll run it again as the Bloodletters won the first round. Chosen have won this second round. Whoever wins the third round is going to be the winner. We'll have to declare them the winner, otherwise we could go on forever. as it looks like this fight here might be, although Chosen slowly falling, Bloodletters slowly falling. Who's going to do it? Oh, the Chosen have given up. They've gone home, so Bloodletters making it a 3-2. Let's see who's the best then. The final test of Chosen Great Weapons versus Exalted Bloodletters. Who's better, Warhammer 2 or Warhammer 3? We're going to find out. Big charges as usual. Let's get to the point though, the wavering section where things start to go downhill for somebody. Wavering from both sides, 1 unit of Chosen, 2 units of Bloodletters wavering here, 1 being banished on the end. Chosen looking good for this win. They've lost 1 there though, so that's 1 each. It's 1 apiece. Oh, that's another one for the Bloodletters. Oh, they've done it! The Bloodletters, they've taken, we're taking a 4-1. A 4-1 victory just to prove a point. So Exalted Bloodletters are the best. There you go. What a great fight, huh? Who knew? Well, guess what? Guess what the bullshit is of this story? These boys cost 1,200. The Chosen with Great Weapons, 1,450. They cost 250 more. They shouldn't be losing this fight. And guess what's even more funny? The Chosen with Great Weapons also lose to the Demonettes. That's right, they get dunked on by the half-naked ladies that cost 250 less than them. The Chosen were able to beat the Plague Bearers and the Sargard, but not able to beat the top 2 of Warhammer 3, despite them being considerably cheaper. So what's the ultimate takeaway of all this? Well, it just seems that Warhammer 2 units are not ready to deal with demons, at least in the state that they're in. We do have to remember here that I'm using a pre-release build that is still in development, so there's a chance that all this stuff will be addressed, the Warhammer 2 units will be buffed up, or maybe the demons will be brought down a bit, I don't know. But either way, it doesn't seem right that the Warhammer 2 units are not as cost-effective against the Warhammer 3 units and that they're just far superior, at least the demons are anyway. But this whole thing raised another question with me. The Chosen with Great Weapons weren't able to beat the Demonettes, but the Swordmasters of Hoeth were. Does that mean that the Swordmasters of Hoeth are the new champions of Warhammer 2 units technically? Well, I had to find out. Let's see who's really the best of Warhammer 2 in Warhammer 3 with the Swordmasters versus the Chosen with Great Weapons. These 2 units should be on the same side. They're from Warhammer 2. In Warhammer 2, the Chosen with Great Weapons are the strongest unit, the best, the number 1, and Swordmasters are the number 2. Let's see if that's changed here. Both coming out with strong damage. Chosen with Great Weapons leading the way. The Chosen are 200 more expensive than the Swordmasters. So again, price dictating performance, that should say that the Chosen will win this, right? Let's see if that happens. It's all over the place in these tests so far, so who freaking knows? Pretty even exchange on the charges, so nobody pulling ahead initially, but how does it look as the battle wears on? Well, wavering Chosen is what it looks like. We see 1 unit of Chosen breaking here. The Swordmasters able to beat the Chosen in this case. Some wavering from the Swordmasters though, so it's not a clean sweep by any means. It's going to be a close one. No more wavering from either side yet. Still pretty close fights all across the board. Can these Swordmasters hold on? Nope, there's a win for the Chosen. That makes it 1-1. These other 2 fights still raging on. Nope, the Chosen are broken here as well. That's 2-1 for the Swordmasters. Can the Chosen turn it around? Or are they actually going to be defeated by a unit that costs 250 less than them and that they used to beat up in Warhammer 2? What's going on? The Swordmasters, they're dying. The Chosen be dying. It's a close one. The Swordmasters are wavering here, but they're holding on. Same down the end. Nobody's giving. Where's the flags gone? 17 Elves versus 18 Chosen. It's pretty much bang on even. It's very, very close. Either way, it's kind of ridiculous, right? The Chosen cost more, considerably more. They should be winning this as they did before in Warhammer 2. Wavering from both parties down the end here. Who's going to give first? Somebody's going to run away. The Chosen have way less models. Their models are probably a bit tougher though, with a bit more health. That fight's still going on too. Chosen dying. But they are not giving up. They're still just wavering. Same with the Swordmasters down the end. And there we go. The Chosen are finally broken there. And the Swordmasters, are they going to break here? Looks like it could be a 3-2 situation. Oh, no. Chosen are wavering. Oh. Who's going to do it? The Chosen, they got more. They got more boys. Who's going to rout and run away? Somebody's going to turn and run. It's going to be the Swordmasters, surely. There's way less of them. They are just not giving up. Come on. I'm running out of things to say. I'm running out of ways to elongate words. Can they do it? Oh my goodness, somebody die already. There we go. The Swordmasters have finally been beaten, but ridiculously close. The Swordmasters have actually won this overall. They've won 3-2. So what do you know? Swordmasters are the new best unit of Warhammer 2 in Warhammer 3. So how the hell have they done it? Well, it's this little bastard. Martial Prowess has had a pretty big buff in that it now lasts 25% longer technically, because it's enabled if hit points greater than 25%. So for 75% of their health bar, they will be getting these buffs. It used to be 50%, so they get a longer time with extra melee defense and melee attack. That is why the Swordmasters are better than Chosen and able to do better against the Warhammer 3 units. So their improvement in performance from that buff is pretty huge, and that has to make you wonder what's the rest of the High Elf roster going to be like, because they all have Martial Prowess too. So we'll have to see. But a couple of other tests I did run here, because in my very first Who's the Best, I put in Regiments of Renown units, and we found that the Crimson Killers were the strongest unit in Warhammer 2 of any unit, including those Regiments of Renown. So how do they do in Warhammer 3 against the best Regiments of Renown they have to offer? Well, let's find out by putting them against the best Regiment of Renown of Warhammer 3, the Hellforged Host, Exalted Bloodletter, Raw. This will tell us quite literally who is the best pound-for-pound anti-infantry killing unit in Warhammer 3, able to beat all of the other infantry going. A stronger start for the Hellforged Host here. They've done more damage to the Crimson Killers than they have done back to them. Still fairly even though. But what made the Crimson Killers so strong in Warhammer 2 is that they had a splash attack of 2, so they could actually hit more than one target, and they're the only infantry in Warhammer 2 that could do that. Everyone else could only hit one target at a time with their swing of the weapon. Crimson Killers, as I say, they could hit 2. So that was a pretty big advantage, and I imagine they're the same in Warhammer 3. I don't see why they would take it away unless they were trying to take away that kind of rarity of a unit having splash attacks while all the others don't. It might be seen as unfair. But either way, the Bloodletter's pulling ahead here. Of course, again, they won't rout, so they will have that advantage over the Orcs, who generally do love a good rout. And it's looking bleak for the Crimson Killers at this point. And there we go. The routing begins. The Hellforged Host are the best unit in Warhammer 3. Or are they? What about the second best unit in the Regiment of Renown version of the tests, the Blades of the Blood Queen for the Dark Elves? Let's see if they have any hope against the old Hellforged boys. Well, we'll save some time, and I'll tell you that they did better than the Crimson Killers, it seems, but ultimately weren't able to stop the Hellforged Host. These boys and their unbreakableness, or unroutableness rather, really does give them such a big advantage against all these units that will waver and run away. And you can see the Blades of the Blood Queen unable to stop the big Bloodletter boys. So is there anyone else that could possibly stop them? Well, what about the old Dawi then? The Peak Gate Guard, the third best unit in those tests, I believe. If anyone can do it, it's a Dawi. They do have magical attacks which will help them remove the physical resistance of the Hellforged Host, and they have Armor Sundering which will also help them out. So maybe they have the tools here to beat demons, mainly with those magical attacks. Pretty even exchange so far. Looks like the Hellforged Host getting ahead though. But maybe the Dwarves can do it? Yeah, no. Actually, the Dwarves just get stomped like everybody else. So, sorry, Dwarf fans. Your Dwarf boys are not the heroes today. They come pretty close in one fight, though. Perhaps doing better than the other two units, but still not enough. Overall, though, the two Exalted Bloodletter types are the best units in Warhammer 3 in the anti-infantry melee department. But there we go, some pretty crazy findings overall. Warhammer 2 units seemingly not quite ready for Warhammer 3 in the state that they're in, or maybe demons are just too strong. And there's a bit of a weird hierarchy thing going on in Warhammer 2 units, where Chosen are the most expensive, but they're not the best because they get beaten up by Homemasters. What the hell is going on? We'll have to see how things are on release, and of course there are more units coming to the game at release as well, with all the new different types of Chosen. Chosen of Khorne, Chosen of Nurgle, Chosen of Slaanesh, Chosen of Tzeentch. How are those going to fit into all of this? Well, we'll see when those come along. For now, there we go. I hope you've enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the future.